Unity of the Huachucas presents Susan Smith, LUT.
The Affirmative Serenity Prayer.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Smith. I'm a licensed Unity teacher, and I've been a licensed Unity teacher for, about 7 years, I don't know, something like that. I've been coming down here. I live in Tucson. I've been coming down here for, probably over 10 years, with a little break here and there. But yeah, so it's delightful to be here with you today. The theme of my talk today is the Affirmative Serenity Prayer. Thank you for this beautiful, beautiful slide. Thank you. I think beautiful slides. And the theme for this month is release. And when I was thinking about release, I just have been really thinking about acceptance. Acceptance has been really something that I've been sitting with in my life. And where does acceptance come in as a prayer, but the Serenity Prayer? And I think this is a wonderful prayer in and of itself. Nothing needs to be changed. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share a little story about my life and a time when I was sort of living the Serenity Prayer. I was kind of living by that guidance. I wasn't actually really praying it, I was kind of living through it. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about acceptance as the power of release. And then I'm going to just kind of have some fun with this prayer and just talk about some of the Unity principles therein, and even try a little bit to do a little affirmative prayer rendition. Just for fun. Just for fun. I don't expect anyone to ever put it on a towel or anything, okay? But just for fun, and just to kind of, because in Unity, we're really always affirming, and we can do that with this prayer, but just to kind of look at the language and have a little fun with it, and really, what is that acceptance idea? So the story I'm going to share with you today is really at the time when I was kind of just brought down to my knees in my life. And it was a little over, I want to say about 22 years ago, 22, 24 years around there. I was living with my sister Sandy up in Phoenix, and we were both single women. Neither of us had children, and Sandy decided she wanted to be a foster parent. And she went through all of the things, and I didn't want to be a foster parent, so I'm like, well, I can help you. I live with you. I could be like the aunt, the foster aunt. So she went through everything, took some time. Finally, 3 brothers came up, and they wanted to place them with her. And she really wanted to adopt. She really wanted to do foster to adopt. These 3 boys came up. They were brothers. They were aged 10, 12, and 14. And she decided, she met them, they visited us. Finally the point came, she's like, yes, we're going to take them. They're going to come live with us. These boys were raised in Glendale, Arizona, and we lived in Ahwatukee. We came to find out that some people call it Ahwatukee. And that's not actually inappropriate for the racial diversity in the neighborhood. All right, it is, and they were Mexican-American heritage. I don't know why we couldn't see that maybe things weren't going to go so well, right? And actually, I did voice some concerns, but she was so committed, and her intentions were so well, and we just thought love would be enough. We just thought we were just very naive. I'm just going to tell you right now, we were just really naive, and we just didn't really understand what we were getting into. And of course, we weren't really given all the information that we really probably needed to make that decision. So the long story is, it did not work out. And you might go, wow, not surprising, Susan. And it was really devastating. They were with us for a few months. The 2 younger boys ended up having to go into another home. The older boy stayed with us. I'm trying not to use their names because I want to respect their privacy since this is a public since this does go public. But the older one did stay with us because he was doing a little better and he was following some of the rules that we needed. What happened was it just wasn't safe for us and it wasn't safe for them. It was truly a safety issue. It just wasn't safe. We didn't have a safe home. We didn't know we couldn't create a safe home, but we couldn't. So we kept Joe, and I just said his name. That's okay. I won't say the others. We kept him and I stayed with them for the 4 years while he was in high school, and I helped up as much as I could. What happened in the middle of this was a complete deterioration of my identity. I just had a complete breakdown. Because what am I if I'm not a good person? Does a good person do that? And what I found myself was in the midst of all of this chaos that was happening in my house, was really isolating myself and kind of detaching myself and maybe not being as full-hearted. And it was just, wow, who am I? I really just had this like, who am I question. And it was very hard. It was very painful. And of course, my sister went through it. And then, of course, what was happening with the boys? We loved these boys. We didn't want to harm them. Our intention was to help. Did we do more harm than help? Never going to be able to answer that question. I cannot answer that question today. But I know our intentions were good. And that's where we have to start. So anyway, so that was a difficult time in my life. And it's when I really started just from that point, okay, what am I going to do now? And I really think I just lived the steps of the Serenity Prayer. So the first step is to, ask yourself, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So I was not praying at that time. That was not something I was doing. But I knew that somehow I had the faith within me to know that my human personality, this is just too much for me. But there's something more. There's something beyond this, And I just allowed, and what I really had to accept, what I couldn't change, I had to figure that out. I couldn't change the past, right? I couldn't go back and say, Sandy, this is not a good idea, more strongly, because I already had said that. I couldn't go back and help their mother so that they could stay with her. I couldn't go back and help deal with the generational trauma that led to this. I can't go back and figure out why we still are trying so hard to figure out how to be fair and just and kind to everyone. I can't figure that all out, right? Those are things I could not change. So that was part of it. And then the next part is courage to change the things that I can. So what is courage? Courage doesn't mean that we're not afraid. It was really scary to have my identity unmoored. And then to deal with this pain. And so I had to face that. So courage is based on faith. That I had to have some sort of belief that there was something beyond what was going on. Hope for all of us, not just for Sandy and I, but for these boys as well. That whatever this happened, that in the long run, good stands underneath all of it. That the intentions will play out. So I had to really do that. So that was where courage comes in. And then courage came in for me, and then the next part is in the wisdom to know the difference. And the wisdom to know the difference is, okay, I can't build a time machine, right? Can't go back to the past. Can't change anything. I don't know Doc, I don't know. So there's no way I can do that. But, the wisdom is those are those divine ideas that come to us. And so my divine ideas that I started having was, okay, I need to figure out who I am. And I need to start, and I found this program on TV called Starting Over. And there was a woman called Rhonda Britton on it. And she was doing all of this, it was like these women start over in this house and they do all this training. And I was brought her book, Rhonda Britton's book, Fearless Living. I started asking myself, what am I afraid of? And there were lots of things. I really started confronting that courageously, right? And it's yeah, this scares me, but I'm going to do it. And one of the main things there was have a spiritual practice. I didn't have one before, really. I had the seeds of it, but I didn't. That led me to my first time in a Unity church. That's led me here. All right, so and I would go back and change that whole thing if I could. But I can't, so I have to accept what I could change. What I could change was me. I could change the way I think about that situation, right? You know what I think about it now? We were all doing the best we could. Every single person involved in the situation was doing the best they could. And that's acceptance. And just letting go. And yeah, so Joe stayed. And I'll tell you a little bit more about their story at the end here. So, and just a quick thing about the Serenity Prayer, where it came from. I just want to give credit. The Serenity Prayer was written by Reinhold Niebuhr. It was first printed in 1932. It's very strongly associated with 12-step programs now, but it's a lot of places. And if you're familiar, like if you've come into Unity through 12-step, or for instance, I was talking to someone and they were just like, what's your language? Like, what program? Are you working the program? Because I use such similar language. And it's because Unity, there was a New Thought leader called Emmett Fox. He was a New Thought pioneer. He wrote, he was a divine science minister, wrote Sermon on the Mount. And his secretary was the mother of of a man who worked with Alcoholics Anonymous co-founder Bill W. So it's just sort of an interesting, I just think it's interesting information if you find that language. So anyway, and it's a great prayer. I love it. So that's kind of how I feel like I lived the prayer. I lived acceptance, and because I was just allowed to accept, I accepted all the things about that. I couldn't change the boys, I couldn't change the circumstances, I couldn't change what had happened, I couldn't change and all of a sudden become Superwoman. I just had to accept that. But I could accept, oh, you know what? We're all doing the best we can. And from that foundation, I can do better. Right? And I can know that's true for everyone. So power of release is the theme this month. And the power of release as acceptance is really what I want to talk about this morning. And I really like our affirmation this month. I release all doubt and fear as I go forward, knowing I am fully human and I'm fully divine. Release is letting go of those limiting thoughts. That's all it is. Acceptance is letting go of those thoughts and ideas and beliefs and things we hold on. Why didn't I do this differently? Why aren't I differently? Why aren't these conditions differently? Why, the woulda, and also the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Acceptance is, okay, here I am right now, and what can I do about it? So that's what acceptance, that's why it's the power of release. And I read this story on, it's about, on the website, it was called The Weight of a Glass by Mark Chernoff. So I'm going to give him credit. I'm going to do a little demonstration. We'll see how it goes. So I'm pouring some water into this glass. Try not to spill it. This is water. Oops. There we go. So like he talked about having a professor of psychology stand up in front of the room and holding a glass of water, or a cup of water. See, it's about this full. And he said, and the professor said, how heavy is this glass? Anybody want to guess? No, it's fine. I don't know how I'm going to do it there. The point is, it's not how heavy it is. How long am I holding it? Is it getting a little heavier now that I've held it about a minute? How about if I hold this the rest of the time I'm talking? How about if, how about if I hold it all day? I might have to grab my other hands. What if this represents all those thoughts, ideas, and beliefs that we just hold on to that limit us, that hold on us to us to tell us that we're not good enough, that holds on and tells us like regret, and why did we do that? What were we thinking? And the wouldas, and the couldas, and the shouldas. What if that represents, and how long can we hold on to that before it breaks us? But with acceptance, we can set it down. There, that's the power of release. And I really appreciated the daily word today, because sometimes we got to do it again because we pick it back up, right? Right? And that's where prayer comes in. That's where our practice. Yeah. So sometimes, I'm going to pick it back up. This is vulnerable for me sharing this story. I'm not proud of this time in my life, but I feel like that's where we learn from each other, when we share those. And it's okay. It's okay still to have regrets somewhere within me, but I accept and know that we did the best we could. And as long as I know that, I'm okay. I'm okay. And what I've learned in those divine ideas that have come from me is, yes, I got into Unity, I teach Unity, I learn Unity. That's one of the things I give back in order to make amends, really. I also help out at a women's shelter, because I don't know where these boys are now. And maybe someone else is helping them that they might need it. I don't know. I'm hoping they're all doing very well. I see them in the light and the truth of who they are. I did outreach for street kids for a while. There's things I do. I did a mental health walk yesterday. I do things like that, trying to make some amends. And that's to help everyone, right? So that's how release works. So I really like that sound. And I really like what Charles Fillmore said in 12 Powers. Unity, co-founder Charles Fillmore. This is a great quote. The mind is like the bowels, should be open and free. The mind is like the bowels, should be open and free. All right, so yeah, free your mind. I think that's just a great example of what we're talking about when we're referencing release, when we're referencing acceptance. Free your mind, the rest will follow. Free your mind with that acceptance. And when talking about acceptance, we're not saying it was okay. We're not surrendering to anything. We're not pretending things aren't what they were. We're just simply saying, I accept the thoughts, ideas, beliefs I have about this. I accept the unchangeable things that have happened in the past. I accept the circumstances I find myself in now. Okay, now what? That's what we're talking about. Because I think in our culture, sometimes it has a negative connotation. But it's simply allowing us to really just be so that we can free ourselves. Free your mind. Free your mind. All right, so how does the Serenity prayer kind of align with unity in the affirmative prayer? So I thought I'd have a little fun with this. First of all, this is a great prayer. You use it, go for it. There's no right way to pray, okay? We do teach affirmative prayer, though. So what are some affirmative ways we could put this in? So God's fine. You could use that. You could also say the I am. You could also use I am. So God is the one power, one presence of what is expressing as the I am, the 100th divine identity. All right? And then who's asking? Grant. God grant. It's like I'm asking. You know who's asking? The human. The human me is asking. The divine. That's really what's happening. And you're affirming, okay, and then serenity. What does serenity represent in unity? I would say serenity is represented by understanding, the power of understanding. Know that God stands under everything. Okay, we can start over again. We can free our mind and know we're on solid ground always. That's where the peace comes from. Faith, understanding faith. All right, so that's where serenity comes from. Just knowing that deep in your heart. Then we've got acceptance. I've already talked about that. That's that power of release. That letting go. Letting go of that which no longer serves you. The thoughts, ideas, beliefs, images, those things. I don't know about you, but I have things that I keep working on it. But I really would not, I'd like to not pick some of these cups back up, you know? Keep working on it. You know, maybe there's just something else for us to learn. Maybe there's something else for us to learn from it. But it's an ongoing process. Courage. I talked a little bit about courage. It's not necessarily fearlessness. It's about finding the faith amidst something that you might be afraid of. You know, I think when that happened to me and I went through that really traumatic experience, which compares to nothing to some other people's traumatic experience. It was traumatic because it just made me question my identity. Much more traumatic for those boys. But I think I was afraid to let go of my self-recrimination. I really was. I was afraid to let go of my pain because I didn't know if I deserved it, you know? And so I had to face that. But there's one power, one presence. Every minute is fresh and new, and we get to decide again and again to remember the truth of our wholeness. That's what we learn and we practice here. So that's what I got to do, and I still get to do it. So I pick it up and I put it down. Pick it up and I put it down. You know? But that's what we all get to do. We help each other, right? We help each other in a community when it's hard. And I certainly have people that help me. All right, so that's just courage, is just knowing the difference. And I like this idea of to know the difference. And the difference is there something that we just can't change? You kind of know that, right? But sometimes we don't know what we can change in our mind as our thoughts and ideas and beliefs. So I'm going to tell you on that, I was doing the best I can. They were doing the best they can. We're all doing the best we can. Because whatever conditions we had in the moment, whatever conditioning that brought us there is creating the behavior and the choices we make. Okay, that's what, so yes, you're doing the best you can. So that's something to think about. And then wisdom, those are our divine ideas, our divine inheritance. And what is a divine idea? A divine idea is anytime you remember your wholeness, anytime you remember your truth, anytime that helps you feel better about yourself and the prospects. And not so much that, but I can face whatever happened in the past. I can stand up and speak my truth. I can let go of that shame and that blame. And I can allow others the same grace. Those are divine ideas. Those that remind us of our wholeness and our connectedness and our oneness. Our godness, our I amness. Our 100% divine. Okay, so you ready for my affirmative serenity prayer? I'm going to get behind here because I need to read it. Okay. I embrace the peace and serenity that arises from recognizing that God is always present and is expressing as me. Grounded in understanding faith in the I am, I recognize and release thoughts, ideas, and beliefs that I cannot change, and guided by divine wisdom, I boldly step forth to change what I can change. God is, I am, and so it is. So that's my little rendition. And this one's pretty good too. All right, so this week I just encourage you, to just remember to let go. And when you find yourself picking up that cup of ideas and thoughts and beliefs and images that aren't serving you, don't beat yourself up. That means you're a caring human being. Right? That means you're here and you care and you want to do the best you can. And somewhere something got lodged in your brain that is on repeat because it's somehow unresolved. It's somehow unresolved. But the power of release is a power. It's one of our 12 powers. I just hold the faith that at some point you can set that cup down for the last time. And I know that you probably can think of times in your life when you have. And I know my being able to share this story tells me pretty firmly that I've pretty much set that cup down. So what happened to the boys? So Joe lived with Sandy till he was, I lived with them through high school. The 4 years he was in high school. I ended up moving to Tucson to be with my mom because my sister Karen had passed. Sandy was in Joe's life throughout the next few years. He did get to graduate. She got him in a Job Corps program. He had his own apartment for a while. It was always tough, up and down, always up. And she had him in therapy. She did see the other boys and continued that connection and the relationship as much as she could. And they did end up in a much better placement, just a place that fit them more and understood them better. So that, Sandy passed away in 2011, and Joe stayed in a relationship with me for a few years. And then unfortunately, I had set a boundary with him on borrowing money, because it was kind of, sometimes I felt a little bit like a bank, and that's not how he saw it, but I started feeling, and I was grieving and vulnerable. And finally, I just said no one time too many, I think. And I think it was very complicated, it's not that simple. And I just never really heard from him again. So I just, I know they're all the light. They're all the light, all of them. And I'm hoping that that connection that we all shared, the adults could have done better. But I'm hoping that they can see the intention behind it. And I accept that. Accept that we're all doing the best we can. So this week I just encourage you to just, when those ideas come to mind, just kind of imagine yourself holding, like, how long do I want to hold this? How much weight? I heard Brenton say once, haven't you carried that weight long enough? And the answer is always yes. Always yes. And then give yourself a break and turn to each other when you need help. Use the serenity prayer. or use mine. I can send it to you guys. You can use mine too. All right, so we're going to end with a brief meditation. And and the meditation is to sort of reinforce some of these ideas. Okay? So if it's comfortable for you, go ahead and close your eyes. Breathe in, just comfortable, whatever that is for you. And then just feel these words written on your heart. The 100% human me chooses to remember my 100% divine identity. By doing so, I affirm my conviction that I am fully equipped to do the work that is to be done by me. The Christ within remembers that God stands under all things, and that I am peace in the midst of all matters. Feeling, knowing, and recognizing the peace that surpasses all understanding, I release and let go of my attachment to thoughts, ideas, and beliefs that no longer serve me, accepting that everyone is always doing the best they can. Grounded in truth in my divinity, I recognize what next step to take in order to be the best 100% divine and 100% human that I can be. God is, I am, and so it is. Okay, go ahead and bring your attention back to the room. Thank you very much.